Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Bimbo Mentality, an educational podcast for silly girls where we sit down with an expert and see if they can think like a bimbo enough to explain all the neat things they do to us. My name is Bug. I am joined, as ever, by my co-host, Emma. How are you doing today, Emma? I know you're a little bit preoccupied.
Very stressed that the U.S. just got a red card right now. That was complete fucking bullshit, and I'm very mad. So, trying to wait out the next 20 so minutes so we can hopefully advance. But yeah, excited to talk about non-soccer stuff today right now.
We have, dear listener, we have decided as a podcast family that for the next 15 minutes, we're gonna, or so, however long it takes, we're going to allow Emma to watch the remainder of the U.S. Bosnia-Herzegovina game, which dates this podcast a bit. Also, I'm sorry for the traffic noises outside of my window. Anyway, that'll be a good fun time for all. Over in the booth doing producer stuff, it's Rue. How are you, Rue?
I'm fine. It was mostly cool today, and then it decided to get really hot for when I was recording. I can't tell if maybe that's just happening in my apartment, but now I'm sweaty and yucky, and I hate that. But I'm alive. I'm here to record with my favorite bimbos.
It sure is hot out. I wonder if that's going to have anything to do with our topic today. Surely I wonder if we can segue. Oh well, let me introduce our guest for this podcast and see if it has any relation at all. We are joined this episode by our guest Samantha Giedzinski. Sam is a New York licensed electrical engineer who has been designing large-scale solar farms for 5 years. She's also known for her ongoing series of open-source 3D printing projects and 3 published books. Welcome to the podcast, Sam. How are you doing?
I'm great. Happy to be here. How are y'all?
I'm doing all right. It is hot out. I can confirm.
It sure is. Yeah. And I wonder who's responsible for that. Did I conspire with the weather to make this relevant for this episode? No. But yeah, we're here today to talk about the sun.
We are going to talk about the sun. This is a topic that I have sort of some passing familiarity with, just from cultural osmosis, because that's just how, this is obviously a very sort of topical matter. You also very, very helpfully provided a quite comprehensive little summary and sort of suggested questions for us. I skimmed it. I looked at it. I can't say I read the whole thing, but there's some very helpful questions, helpful guiding questions in here. Questions like, what is the sun? And is electricity evil? So that's, I suppose, going to be the kind of conversation that we're having today.
Hey, you never know. I've listened to episodes of this podcast. We might get to those questions or we might not. Who's to say?
Who is to say? Well, why don't you sort of start by telling us a little bit about your history and your expertise, and if you've ever had any sort of fights to the death with electricity?
Yeah, certainly not to the death. But I studied mechanical engineering in college. I was at the University of Maryland, and after I graduated, I really wanted to live specifically in Asheville, North Carolina, and I was willing to apply to pretty much any engineering job in order to get there. And there were 2 jobs available, one of which I didn't feel very qualified for, and the other of which was an entry-level position in solar. So I applied to the new grad position with a solar developer company. And for the past 5 years, that's been what I'm doing. Although I've switched employers twice, so I'm in a slightly different place, doing something slightly different than what I was at the start. But for the most part, I'm still designing solar farms. Yeah.
Okay, first of all, why Asheville, North Carolina?
That's a great question. Part of it is that I have a bit of a family connection there, and the first time that I visited Asheville, like downtown Asheville with my family, this is like a Appalachian small city. Um, oh, is that a goal, Emma?
We just
I
fucking
see. I see
scored.
the
We just fucking scored down a man.
hell
Yes.
yeah. All right.
Sorry. Okay.
Um,
Continue. I'm listening. Thank you.
no, you're all good. Asheville, North Carolina is a small Appalachian city. Um, very like artsy, but also a city in the South. And the first time I was there downtown happened to be the day that they were dismantling their Confederate monument in like the center town square. So there was like a crane taking apart an obelisk, and there was a group of conservative protesters. Um, so initially it was kind of scary, and this big red pickup truck came like roaring through the intersection, and a woman stood up in the bed of the moving pickup truck and flashed her tits at the conservative protesters. And I turned to my family and I said, I'm going to move to this city. And I did.
No, okay. In that I get it now. First of all, like that does answer my question.
Yeah.
So that does, that means that you went through what I think is probably a very typical career progression of seeing a pair of titties and becoming an expert in solar farming. I think that that's
Yeah.
probably
And,
what everybody does.
right. It's the natural path. And I think anyone can do it, of course.
Yeah, naturally. Um, Big naturalsy, if you will.
Ah, yeah.
Now that we've talked about tits, what's a solar farm?
What is a solar farm? So typically, what we're talking about when it comes to solar power is photovoltaics, which there are a lot of different types of solar power, but the typical way that we turn sunlight directly into electricity is through the photovoltaic effect. And we have these devices that in the industry we refer to as modules, but you might hear someone more commonly refer to as solar panels. And if you put enough of those together in one place, outdoors, exposed to the sun, not in the shade, you get more or less a solar farm. And, if you're powering more than just a single house or a single business or property, and you're connecting all of those modules to the electric grid, that then is, a solar power facility, um, more so than just a private one.
Well, gee, that sounds really like economical and effective. What what is it? Can you confirm?
It is right now. As of today, to my understanding at least, solar power is the cheapest way to put new generation on the grid. Uh, that's why, despite all of the pushback from the current administration in this country, and despite all of the economic headwinds that all of us are facing, solar power is still being built. I am still employed and I still have a lot of work keeping me busy. So,
I was so excited for this episode because I live in California, where we are currently leading the country in solar generation. And I actually, as much of a bimbo as I am, I do have a little bit of a special interest when it comes to this. And like, I
yeah,
know over the last few years, California has been having like certain days more in the springtime where like battery generation has been like enough to account for all of our electricity demand during the day. And like that's getting more. We just set a new record, I think, in March for like how much of our energy we created from battery generation. And I know like I saw some stat, if like California was its own country, it would be like second behind China in like terms of like battery capacity. And that was wild. So anyway, sorry, I'm just like uh info dump me a little bit, but I'm really excited for this. So yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And that was something I was hoping to talk about today.
Yay!
California in particular has been really good at installing grid connected battery energy storage systems. And what makes that so good is that solar, which is not generated all the time, if the sun isn't shining or at night, you need other sources of power to meet the demand that's coming from a state as large as California. And one of the neat ways to spread out the renewable energy of the sun is by charging up batteries during the day. So installing even more solar than you need, and then discharging those batteries onto the electric grid and distributing that energy at night or when it's cloudy, or just in the areas that need it. If let's say another type of power plant goes offline for whatever reason, having that dispatchable generation from batteries is a very useful and healthy thing for an electric utility operator to have. California has led in this for a while, but it is looking like Texas is catching up after the really terrible outages that Texas had, I think, in 2018 in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of like got their act together because they really don't want to be embarrassed like that again. And they also don't want people to die. So they are building out a lot of solar and a lot of batteries in Texas. And I watch several websites that track the records in both regions. So it's been exciting.
Not really something you expect from Texas. I mean, I typically
No,
find
no.
that Texas does want people to die.
I was gonna jump
yeah.
in. I was gonna jump in as a well. I know Rue is also a former Texan. Texas is this weird. They're like Texas sucks in so many ways, obviously, and that's why I don't live there anymore. But it also like is so apart from the other southern states, and it kind of like it has a much more booming economy than most of the South, and it has like better like I know it's leading in. I think Samantha, correct me if I'm wrong. I know this isn't your area, but I'm pretty sure Texas is number one in like wind, also in the U.S. And so like,
Yeah,
I think like it's yeah, I think it is like I did see that it was catching up, and there's also just miles and miles of nothingness in West Texas that is ideal for wind and solar. So like,
yeah, I've been some of that and seen those massive facilities they have out there at night. If you look from some of the roads where there are no lights, you just see these red flashes in the distance that are all of the red lights at the top of windmills.
Yep.
It's very eerie.
It looks like War of the Worlds style thing. I definitely have seen that out there too. Sorry. I grew up in Texas, live in California now, so this topic is very like near and dear to me.
It is.
Yeah.
It is always very funny to me when the reactionary dipshits who run the government so often, whose like entire thing is doing as bad a job as possible at running the government on purpose, look at technologies that just obviously work and are like, I hate this because it works, and therefore it doesn't suck as much as I want everything to suck. And then it turns out doing a bad job on purpose has consequences. And so they have to, like when they had to sheepishly make soldiers start taking the flu vaccine again recently, and likewise Texas with solar. Anyway, all of which is to say that this sounds like good technology. We did also talk about wind a little bit right there, which, this is kind of one of the questions he's suggested we talk about. How does solar kind of compare? I mean, you mentioned it a little bit that it's the cleanest, but sort of theoretically, how does solar compare to other energy generating tools? Are there other ones that need to be built up more, that are comparable? What's your feeling on that?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of wind. I think that the reactionary pushback on wind has been even more outrageous than it has been against solar. I have friends who work in the wind power industry who have had a really hard time. There have been a lot of layoffs. A lot of companies have gone out of business because essentially our government has made it impossible to build new large wind projects unless they had like very strong pre-approvals and permitting already in motion, and they've been able to argue in court that it has to continue. So it's a scary time in that case, but I 100% agree with what you were talking about things being done sheepishly or quietly when, the people who don't want to do the thing kind of have to for the same economic reasons that make them so greedy. Uh, One of the examples of that I've seen is that a lot of the large tech companies that are trying to build out AI data centers and need to pay for a new generation to be put on the electric grid in order to sustain their data centers, they talk a lot about buying turbines for like natural gas generation or diesel generators. But what they don't talk about is how much solar they're building. And they are all building solar. They are paying for very large solar farms.
This is actually an amazing full circle because in an earlier episode where we talked about data centers, I believe we literally touched on the fact that a lot of solar is being built, and so like paradoxically, like there's more solar generation happening now because of the data centers or something like that. I don't know if we.
Oh,
If
yeah.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
there was a facility I was working on a design for. I probably can't say exactly where, and I definitely can't say which large tech company's data center it was going to be powering, but it was one of the messiest, most like poorly shaped, broken up solar farms I've ever designed. And it was also one of the largest. So that's super expensive for them to build. And that tells me they are highly motivated to get it done.
No, it's amazing how in order for good things to happen, first there has to be like either catastrophe or somebody has to make good infrastructure in order to manufacture and distribute their shitty product.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much sort of revolutionary technology has been created in order to market shitty products? Like,
That's a great question. Yeah. It's kind of, the selling the shovels problem of, the solar companies that are building out all of this new infrastructure that may or may not be needed depending on how much we actually want these data centers in the future. Um, but having a lot of surplus electric generation is really good, especially if we have more batteries that we can charge up during the day and then dispatch as needed.
I think I'm really excited to find out like what electrical technologies, like what ends up, what do we end up making in
Mm,
order to make use of all of this new solar power we have once the AI bubble bursts and everybody remembers that nobody wants that shit. Uh, I am I am sort of putting my hat in the ring right now. That I'm looking forward to the invention of turbo porn.
I
So
don't know
so
what you
it's
mean, but I'm so into this.
Yeah, what is
Yeah, right?
turbo
yeah,
porn?
yeah.
I'm not sure I know what I mean yet either, but I'm so excited to find out what that is.
Bug, you and I are gonna go into a lab with some beakers and some chemicals and possibly some old VHS recording equipment, and we are going to find out what turbo porn means.
I'm thinking that it's good, that it's porn that sends you back in time.
Yes.
I am going to start working on my 2027 bingo card right now, and turbo porn is the first box I'm writing down.
See,
You
I
can just
was
use that as the free space.
see
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're
right in the
you're
center.
I was like thinking of like a real irrational like use for more power, and I love that you took it you zagged when I was gonna zig. So I was gonna say like it's the same thing with like if we ever get nuclear fusion, which is always like 10 years, 20 years away or 50 years away, which is like desalinization is very energy
Yeah,
intensive. But like if we got to a point where we had enough ubiquitous and cheap energy, then like all the water needs could also be taken care of as well. So like that's
sure.
what I
Yeah,
would like
yeah.
that's what I would like to see in a future like utopia that I don't think will ever get to Star Trek type thing, but you know, who knows. Um I am curious though, and one question I would love to hear from an expert on is like
Yeah.
are advances in like solar today, are more of them coming in like better batteries that are more efficient, or are they coming in like literally the photovoltaic cells are becoming more efficient? I'm guessing it's both, but like, is there one that's more like there's been more leaps and bounds of improvements than others?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. And I'll address those separately. So starting with batteries, because batteries are a separate technology that I
Mhm.
don't deal with nearly as much. I used to know a lot more about because I used to be really into learning about electric cars. So I'm a little bit out of the loop on battery developments, but I know that they are getting better in terms of energy density, which is the amount of energy you can store per unit of weight of the battery. And the better that gets, the more different applications you can use it for, but also the more storage you can fit in a smaller area, which is a really big deal, especially if those newer batteries can last longer and not degrade over many, many cycles. Um, but then the other side of that, in terms of the efficiency of solar modules, um, you specifically said solar cells, which, for clarity's sake, a typical solar module is made up of roughly 72 or 84 cells. Um, the
Cells, that's like
cells,
the squares, right?
yeah, they're the little squares on the big
Nailed
glass
it.
sheet, and the big glass sheet is the module. Um, Large scale modules that we use for solar power plants these days are like 7.5 feet long by like 4 feet wide, typically. Um, and they're heavy, they're serious, and those little blue squares of the cells, assuming this is a monocrystalline silicon solar module, they have like they're technically octagons because they have the corners cut off on them. Those little cells are getting more efficient. However, this technology, silicon solar cells, has a like limit in terms of efficiency, in terms of physics. I think it's somewhere around 30% that they know they can't get past that. Like, even if they did it perfectly, there's no way to capture more energy than about 30% with that material. And right now, we have some that are hitting efficiencies like I think around 23, 24% is pretty common, um, which is really good. I mean, when I started working in this industry 5 years ago, 20% efficiency was fantastic. And now we're already, a good bit past that. So it has picked up pace and development. There are a lot of companies that manufacture modules and cells. Um, and there is a new emerging generation of cell technology called perovskite, which is a different fancy crystal that generates power through the photovoltaic effect, but it absorbs different wavelengths of the sun's light. So silicon is limited to only certain wavelengths and can only draw energy from those. But perovskite, when combined with silicon, allows you to scoop up more wavelengths and just squeeze out a little more of that energy and get a higher efficiency percentage.
All right. I am I am feeling so behind the ball on this episode. The photovoltaic effect. What is
Yeah,
that?
we can circle back on that. Um, so the photovoltaic effect is something that happens when uh, certain crystals of different elements or compounds are exposed to light of various wavelengths. In the case that we're talking about, that is usually sunlight that is striking two layers of silicon crystal. Uh, they have certain impurities in the different layers that make it more likely for electrons to want to jump from one side to the other. And every time photons strike the outer crystal, that pushes electrons between those two layers. And when one layer becomes more charged than the other, the electrons want to find a way back to flow to the other. So if you attach wires to the two layers at either end, the electrons will be forced to flow through those wires, through those electrodes, and then you can utilize that electricity for whatever you want as the electrons try to flow back from one crystal to the other. So it is a case where we are putting our crystals in the sun and charging them. That is literally it.
I was gonna say, were the New Age mystics right when you like leave a crystal soaking in sunlight? Does it start doing fucked up shit and like vibrating and shit?
Uh, Not vibrating, but they can definitely catch fire. There are a lot of ways that these modules can catch on fire. There are a lot of ways any solar farm can catch on fire. Um, One example, oddly enough, is if a module becomes shaded, even just partially. So there's sun shining on a lot of it and shade on one little part of it, even a single cell. That cell is no longer generating electricity and becomes very resistant to electricity passing through it. But because all these cells are plugged in order, like a daisy chain together, electricity is being forced through a cell that doesn't want to have electricity go through it, which makes it get very hot. So oddly, if you put it in the shade, it gets hotter. And it actually gets hot enough that it will melt and catch fire. So there's additional circuitry in every module to make sure that doesn't happen. If it detects that the resistance is too high and it's in danger of catching fire, it shuts off that entire section of the module. And that is why even if you partially shade a module, you lose just about all of its power.
So, like, how much shade are we talking about here? Like, would a cloud do this, or is it more like more direct shade? Like,
That's a great question. So with a cloud, you get more like diffuse shading, where the overall amount of like irradiance hitting the module is decreased. That can usually still work. If you have a totally cloudy day, you can still generate a good bit of power out of a solar power plant. But when you're talking about an individual module, if you have, let's say, a tree branch, or if you have rows and rows of modules as you do in a solar farm, sometimes they will shade one another, especially as they rotate over the course of the day. And when one shades the next one, suddenly all of them turn off because they can't operate when shaded.
I'm picking up from context here that you cannot harness the power of flaming crystals and use that to power your turbo porn.
I am not going to say you can't. I'm going to say I have never tried.
Thank you. That's the honest answer.
That's the discovery. We just made the discovery on this podcast that's going to lead to them being able to invent it. You harness the power of flaming crystals.
Yes.
Scientists, you can have that one for free. Actually, not for free. You have to give me money.
Yeah.
But you can have it for free in spirit.
Yeah, you have to patent this now. That's important.
I think that they should just send me the money, like, because it's polite.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure they will. Scientists are an honest bunch.
They seem nice.
Yeah, right? Let's talk about. We're circling way back to something that briefly got mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Tell me about nuclear fusion. What's up with that?
Yeah. So I think Emma, you mentioned the long development of nuclear fusion that is taking decades after decades. Um, but we do kind of already have it, just not in the form we want it. The sun is a naturally occurring fusion reactor. There is enough hot gas on the sun that is generating heat as it is pressed together and undergoing a continuous fusion reaction that releases even more energy as heat and light. And the atoms of the hydrogen that is on the sun are fusing together into helium, which is an immensely energetic reaction. If we could reliably do that on Earth and generate electricity directly from it, that would be great. The application of desalination is a great example of something that might become possible with that amount of available power. But then, we do have a fusion generator, but unfortunately, it's very far away. And the function of photovoltaics is to harness that fusion energy.
So, nuclear power, then, is that just like we try to do the sun again?
Yeah,
Like,
well, there's two types. Generally speaking, there's two types of nuclear power when you're talking about generating electricity. So, like the famous nuclear power plants, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, everyone knows about the bad ones. They
the
are,
one from The Simpsons?
yeah, the one from The Simpsons, exactly. So the like Springfield nuclear power plant, they're all not fusion reactors. They are fission reactors. Very similar name, but exactly the opposite in terms of what's happening in the nuclear reaction. Atoms are being split rather than combined. Funny enough, depending on the atoms, both of those types of nuclear reactions generate a lot of electricity or a lot of energy that can then be converted into electricity.
I bet if they could figure out how to do nuclear fusion and nuclear fission together, that they could figure out how to invent hyperporn.
That is definitely a question for a nuclear physicist. And when you have one on this podcast, I expect that to be answered.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
I do too.
It's basically just going to be an hour-long chat about hyperporn. That's what my expectation in anyway.
That's porn that lets you fight God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. So picking up from context then, that it sounds like making a solar farm is way easier than making like a big nuclear power plant. And you design those. That's like a big part of, your actual role in this. Tell us what that's like.
Yeah. It's a whole lot of rectangles. That's kind of what it starts with. Um, when I am first given a project, usually what that entails is a plot of land that I have an aerial view of. I have the property boundaries of where we're allowed to build. And then the question is, where do you put the very large rectangles, which are a bunch of modules in a row on a metal rack structure that usually is oriented so that it tilts from east to west and tracks the sun as the sun moves across the sky or as the earth spins. Uh, when we assemble this, these racking structures are put into the ground. So there's no real foundation. There's no like concrete that gets poured. It's not quite like building a house. It's much more a bunch of pile drivers go out into a field and stick metal I-beams into the dirt and hope that they stay straight up and don't fall over, which can totally happen. And then we build off of that. Many, many thousands of metal piles in the ground.
It sounds basically like the first part of it is like a big game of SimCity where, you have literally the overhead view of the territory and your
Yeah,
boundaries, and you have to make it like efficient and functional. And then
right?
it's sticking poles in the ground.
Yeah, yeah. The like you get to dream a whole lot at the beginning, and then it's a long process of narrowing down what you're able to actually do. You learn about all the actual restrictions as you go through the design and construction process. You find out, oh, there are rocks in the ground. How big are the rocks? You might have to dig them up. You might have to drill through them, or you might have to bring in explosives and actually blow them up. All of these are possible.
Wow, it's like SimCity and Minecraft at the same time.
Yeah.
I was a big SimCity 2000 player. Love that.
And we also have to know about the conditions of the soil, how well it conducts temperature, if it's going to corrode any of the equipment that we put in the ground. There's actually a lot of information about dirt that I've had to learn against my will.
Have you ever just had to like abandon an entire solar farm because it didn't work?
Yeah. I keep a running list of what I call places that we couldn't or shouldn't have done solar. And the list is as follows. First one was in panther territory. We had a facility that was right up against a like protected panther habitat boundary. So we had to be very careful not to disturb anything past this imaginary line on the dirt.
Oh, okay. It was like a conservation issue. It wasn't just that like
Right.
panthers can fight the sun.
No, and it was, there's also a concern for the panthers, fighting the construction workers, which is a safety issue.
Yeah.
No, I think
OSHA probably has thoughts on that.
Right. Although I do think it was probably more about the panther's sake. Other like protected species we've dealt with, burrowing owls. So a bunch of owls in the ground is not something you want when you're doing things to the dirt. There's also like circular boundaries around eagle nests and certain other bird of prey nests. The entire state of Kentucky is a really bad place for solar because Kentucky is very prone to sinkholes. There are just kind of sinkholes or the potential for sinkholes everywhere in the state of Kentucky.
Largest cave system on Earth is in Kentucky, so that makes sense.
That is correct, yeah. And it is because of the same geological processes. There's also the New Madrid seismic zone, which is an area along the Mississippi River that is like not on a seismic fault, but is really prone to very big earthquakes every couple hundred years.
Yep.
So,
the 1812 earthquake that caused the Mississippi River to flow backwards because
exactly.
The seismic zone is an ancient failed rift in the middle of the North American continent. Yeah. I have a good so I dabble in geology. So
yeah, no, this is a great one.
I mean, you're really coming in like you're one of the experts for this.
Look, earth science, like I love geology and meteorology and earth science, natural sciences were my like area that I was really interested in growing up. So that's and took some classes in college. So that's why this is like maybe the only episode where I'm not full bimbo. So I apologize for ruining the illusion this time.
No, you're so good. Someday we'll have an episode that like overlaps with one of my areas of expertise. Like, if you're out there listening, Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventures, and want to guide us on a ghost hunting episode, I'll be able to join in for that.
Oh my god. Yes!
Unironically, that would rule.
That would be, oh my god. Yeah, please. I'm gonna send an email to that effect. I just wanna let's just see if we can make it happen.
We were talking about real shit. What were we talking about? We were talking about how you can't build solar on
the New Madrid seismic zone, where if an earthquake occurs, the ground will essentially become liquid, and all of those piles that we put in the ground will fall over all at once. We tried to design around that and came to the conclusion that there is no engineering solution So the client that was building that facility just has to pay for better insurance, and that's it. So sometimes that's what it comes down to. But then we also had, I can talk more specifically about this site because, well, the employer I was with that was building it no longer exists. They went bankrupt. They were trying to build on top of a live cranberry bog. I don't know if you've ever seen what a cranberry bog looks like, but
I
depending,
assume they're wet.
very wet and very cranberry and actually very spiders. Lot of spiders in cranberry bogs.
Okay.
And
Note to self: never visit a cranberry bog ever. Is basically what I'm hearing.
That sucks because I love cranberries.
yeah, well, I mean, unless you're picking them yourself, I don't think you have to worry about the cranberry bog spiders. But yeah, this facility was going to get built on very large wooden posts, which is super weird. That's basically never done. But there was a local group that raised a concern about the treatment of the wood having a chemical in it that would affect the cranberries. And the fact that it hadn't been studied, there was just no study on the interaction of that particular chemical with cranberries. The local zoning board, I think, made the decision that we couldn't build it because they weren't sure about the science of the cranberries.
Cranberries 1, the sun 0.
Yeah, cranberries
That
did defeat the sun that day.
I would not have necessarily like that's not how I would have filled out my March Madness bracket, but good for them.
I had one come across my desk years ago, and I knew from the name it was going to be a problem because it was called Bombing Range Solar.
Oh Jesus!
And they were trying to build it basically in an active minefield.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I guess that land must have been really cheap, but I don't know if that one ever got built. I don't think it did.
That does kind of, I think, raise an interesting question, which is, would you rather take your chances building solar, assuming you had to be there? I'm talking this is for everybody, by the way. This is not just an expert question.
Yeah.
Would you rather take your chances having to build a construction project on an old but possibly still active minefield, or just a big field full of panthers?
Mm. That's tricky. I feel like the question is do you trust your luck not stepping on a mine, or do you trust your ability to fight panthers?
I think for me, it's not. If I step on a mine, I'm screwed. But I think that I could befriend the panthers.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer.
I have a better chance of befriending a panther than I do befriending a landmine. Is sort of my logic here.
This is like the man or the bear thing that women answered like a few years ago, where they were like, "I'll take my chances with the bear," right? Like,
yeah.
Which they're right. Yeah, we were right on that one.
Yeah.
The panther or the landmine.
The panther or the landmine. Yeah, there could be some cool panthers that are chill, right?
I just need one, I just need that one panther that's like, we should give the humans another chance. Like in the fucking Planet of the Apes.
Look, maybe the panther just had a meal, so it's like chilling, cats are really lazy. So
we look in each other in the eyes and we're like, we're not so different, you and I.
Yeah, look, big cats. We've seen them in those videos. They're basically just house cats but bigger. Like they act the same way. You could catch one on a good day, I think.
What's a successful solar farm situation? What works? What ends up working?
Yeah. I've seen some very large and very pretty facilities that were under construction out in Texas, actually. I did a triple site visit a while back, um, kind of around the Waco area. And
I'm sorry.
are you apologizing on behalf of Texas?
Just that you had to be around Waco, yeah.
Yeah, Waco specifically. That's real.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. I remember that, we had to travel around in these SUVs that were rented. And so it's just a bunch of like office workers that are like showing up in SUVs on these construction sites and having a really like uncomfortable interactions with the teams that are actually building the projects we design, which was always a tricky thing to navigate and like something that was like you want to bond with the teams who are putting these plans into practice, but there's just such a cultural divide, I guess.
More
But
like Fako. Anyway, as
fake
you were.
tech. But yeah, that's those sites are really large. They have the equipment that's required to actually connect from the modules to the grid uh, involves a lot of large devices. You have inverters that have to convert power from DC to AC, and then you have to step up the voltage of the AC power to whatever it's being transmitted at on the large electric lines. And that's very large transformers that I've gotten to see. Um, they weigh like so many pounds that it doesn't really make sense to express the number. Some of these transformers that get installed on substations for solar farms are so heavy that they have to be built into special train cars called Schnabel cars. And
Incredible name.
yeah, and they have to basically become a train car for transportation and then get delivered to the site by rail and be installed and then filled with oil that makes them even heavier.
So really like out in the middle of nowhere is the answer.
Yeah, out in the middle of nowhere where there's a big field where the soil is very consistent and the sun shines a lot, and especially anywhere that there's an existing transmission line that you can hook up from that big transformer onto. The higher the voltage, the more likely you can build a bigger facility.
Do we have a lot of those? Are we like loaded up on those?
We do, but we are actively loading up more. And that's something that I think a lot of the utilities have had to learn that there is a desperate need to build more transmission. Um, Part of what's made Texas struggle so much was that they couldn't bring in power from outside areas. The Texas grid is isolated for the most part. It doesn't connect to other regions, so they can't import electricity the way that California can. Um, and that inability to transmit electricity over long distances, especially at high voltages, can be very limiting when you have a lot of power being generated in one place and a lot of demand in another. So if all of your wind farms are out in the Great Plains and all of your power is needed in Chicago, you need a way to get that power from one place to another.
Famously, also that's a major reason it bit them in the ass during that cold storm like a few years ago.
Absolutely, yeah.
Texas, get it together, man.
Good old ERCOT.
Oh, they're trying. They're trying. ERCOT, yes. If I recall, that's the Electric Reliability Council of Texas.
I think that's it.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
They should try being more reliable.
They should.
Yeah. I spent a few cold nights in like what was it, like 21, 22, cursing those people.
Wait, were you in Texas during that big one when it happened?
Yep. Yeah, my bedroom
Wow.
flooded. My vinyl records all got fucked up. I was really, really upset.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I had like my friends were like going to their car to like charge their phones, and then like heating water on the stove because it was horrendous. And then even some of the stove lines went out, the gas lines went out for some people. Like, yeah, that is.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, that's really bad. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you finish with that.
No, I was just saying it was really funny because when I moved to California like 12 years ago, you know, they're like a lot of like Texas politicians love to talk about like California's like brownouts or energy, and like I can count on one hand the number of times my power has gone out in 12 years in California, and like no longer than like 30 minutes. And, you know, then Texas had like 5 days of no power. And I was like, you know what? Not so bad. Not so bad. Our power companies just burned down forests by not updating their equipment after 50 years and causing some of the biggest wildfires in the history of the United States. So, you know, pick your poison, I guess you could say. PG&E is also horrible.
All electric equipment has a lifespan that ends and must be replaced. And the same goes for solar farms. They're typically designed for about a 30-year lifespan. And then they either have to have all of the modules and other electric equipment replaced, or they have to be completely disassembled and removed.
Jeez. So like, what are we going to do in a hypothetical future where like we just keep building more and more and more solar and it becomes the dominant form of energy? Like 50 years from now, like I feel like it would be a massive undertaking even just to keep those maintained and replaced.
Yeah, I think that what's referred to as repowering, the process of, you know, replacing all that equipment, is going to become a lot more popular in the industry. That's going to be what a lot more of us are doing, especially as the larger facilities that were built, you know, say 20 years ago, start to need that replacement cycle. But I do think that most of them will get replaced and very few of them will get disassembled. Typically, the site owner doesn't own the land it's on. They usually lease it for like 35 years. And those leases are very lucrative to the actual landowners, who in a lot of cases are former farmers who are leasing their land to a solar developer. And they'll want to renew that lease and just continue getting what to them is free money off of their land.
That's literally like what the I forget, it's the PUF, I forget what it's called, something university fund. The reason, fun little fact here, my alma mater, the University of Texas at Austin, has like the second largest endowment in the United States after Harvard, because it owns a fuckload of acres in West Texas since the 1800s that oil was discovered under. And so they just lease out the land and reap the subsidies and benefits. And it sounds like exactly like this then, for different purpose and less nefarious and shitty for the earth purpose.
And a lot of times it's the same land. I've designed sites out in West Texas, and they are really messy and broken up because there's so much oil and gas infrastructure. We have lines crisscrossing the site. We have wells. And then over the process of building it, we'll discover new wells that weren't written about and weren't documented. So it's always a puzzle. It's a geometry problem.
There's something beautiful about like using land used for oil and then putting solar on top of it. Like I feel like that's a nice, there's optimistic.
So nature is healing about it.
Yeah. You know what though? I gotta say real quick here. Important question here is the solar industry has never been able to answer the most critical question, and I think they sweep it under the rug, which is, you know, you don't even admit that like we only have like 4 billion years of solar left, and really like less than that when the sun goes red supergiant and like swallows the earth. So like, what do you have to say for yourself in the industry there? Because it's kind of fucked up.
I can answer that one actually. By that point, we will have discovered turbo porn, and it won't matter because we'll be able to go back in time using turbo porn.
Turbo porn.
There you go. We've solved it.
Wait.
Yeah.
Have y'all seen Back to the Future?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm asking. That was really for Bug because because they have not seen a lot of movies. But I was
only the first one, and it was many years ago.
Okay, so then you'll understand my really shitty pun, which is that the part of turbo porn that makes time travel possible is the flux capacitor.
Oh my God, Emma!
Oh no,
that was pretty good.
Well, on that note, fucking note.
Yeah. On that note, we do. The question was very good, but we are out of time. Which actually surprises me a little, because I feel like this conversation flew by. This was fascinating.
This was so fun.
We will have to pick this.
Thank you.
We will have to pick this up again sometime. But before we wrap up, we do have our final little segment here. Emma, what'd you learn today?
There's so many things to choose from on this one. I think one thing, genuine answer, I had never considered. I think I just kind of felt like you could just put some solar panels on land and be done with it. It's all the same. And I didn't really factor in the soil composition or what goes into that. So that was a thing I learned. And then I also learned about new kinds of porn that open up new modalities for existence. So that too, I guess.
I learned what a voltaic is. I learned that the sun cannot vanquish cranberries or panthers. I have learned about all of the turbo porn that I am going to be consuming very soon. And I learned that clean energy production is kind of just has a bit of a fuck it we ball element to it. It's it's got elements of a game of SimCity. It's a lot of trial and error, and it's a lot of making very silly mistakes on your way to doing something really cool and important. And that's Bimbo Mentality, baby. Having heard what we have taken away, do you feel like you successfully thought like a bimbo and taught us all about solar power?
I think so. I think I feel like a real solar-powered bimbo now.
I completely agree. Before we wrap up, do you have anything you want to plug for us?
Sure. I have a Patreon. If anyone listening is interested in very infrequent posts about 3D printed cosplay props or strange mechanical devices, that's something that I post on the internet. I also have several published books that can be found through my website, Giedzinski.com. That's GIEDZINSKI.com. It's a difficult last name to spell, but if you can spell it, there's all sorts of things that I have on various websites and platforms under that name.
That's awesome. You have some writing as well, right?
Yeah, I published a book last year called Nights They Forgot. It is a transgender body swap mystery novel, heavily focused on tarot cards and alcohol and Appalachian life.
Wow.
Incredible. Sounds great.
Renaissance woman over here. Fuck.
I'm trying, I'm staying very busy.
That's awesome. Real quick before we wrap up, I do want to shout out the other. Do want to circle back and shout out the other prospective guest that I very nearly reached out to, because it allows me to talk about a thing that I think everybody in the world should experience. Just that I think sometime last summer, my best friend and I were hanging out looking for a movie to watch, and she recommended the 90s cinematic masterpiece Hackers. So we went to watch, we went to search for Hackers, and while searching, we found a different movie called Bikini Hackers, which is about a 40-minute film about a bunch of hot lesbian hackers trying to do a communist revolution.
Great.
By
Perfect.
like yeah, by like seducing the head of a CEO or like the CEO of a company or whatever. And we saw that and we're like, well, we have to watch that. Like what are we gonna not watch it? It's like I said, it's about 40 minutes long. It is filmed similarly to like a college film that got a B.
Right.
You sort of suspect most of the cast were porn stars before this movie.
Uh-huh.
It's the best movie I've ever seen.
Jesus.
It rules.
Incredible.
And after watching that, I very nearly reached out to the star of that movie, Jessica Egg, to get on this podcast.
Please
and if
do.
you ever hear this, Jessica Egg, please come on this podcast. I want to talk about bikini hackers with you so bad.
Let's do it. Oh my God. Okay. Incredible.
On that note, that's gonna wrap it up for us this week on Bimbo Mentality. It's hopefully gonna cool down by the time this actually goes live. But if it hasn't, stay cool out there, friends. Join us in a couple weeks when we learn about biomedical communications.
I just want to reach out and touch someone. I just want to reach out and touch someone. Don't you